Look at that. Just wheel. No, I'll bring it on.
It's the slides to get rid of.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, it's just because I'm conscious that the camera's there. So, sure.
We want. Will be
There.
there, yeah. Do you want it like this or full screen? I mean,
Full screen, yeah. Whatever. Fine, I think. Yeah. Yeah, because at least I can see myself. Okay. So, because I've never had a background, and to be honest, I'm not a fan of having a background normally because I think it always looks a bit daft. I'd rather have, yes, I'm in normal.
we'll get it removed.
But if I can get a glass of water, mate, that would work a treat. Just put my phones all on silent over there so they won't buzz in my foot.
Wait for that one to let you know.
Basically, but my guess is that if it doesn't start till 11, that's when that.
You should be able to see this.
Liam, can you hear me?
I
I
certainly
can see you on the video.
Can you hear me? Hello?
I'm just asking the technician to make sure he can hear you.
Wonderful. That would be lovely.
Okay, very good. We can hear you.
Excellent. Thank you.
Oh, just hold on one moment. Karina here again. I was just going to ask if you could mute yourself until you're introduced a little bit later in this segment.
Certainly
But it seems like everything is working fine.
That's excellent.
Super, thank you.
I'll mute now.
Please.
Everybody hear me? Welcome, please come on in. My name is Solitaire Townsend, and I am the chair of the Futerra Solutions Union, an organization dedicated to working with culture and creatives to solve climate change. Now, we're here to talk about the film and TV industry. And if you know your James Bond movies, you may know where my name came from. So I was destined to work in the combination of sustainability and creativity. I have a postgraduate degree in environmental science and I have a postgraduate degree in Shakespeare. And this is what I call, well, that tells you that I was a very boring young woman, but also that I have a passion for combining the logic of sustainability. The logic of sustainability is the targets and the science and the policy and the architecture, the left brain thinking, all of that hard, clinical, rational decision making that we do whilst we're here at COP. That's the logic. But that is only half of what human beings are. We are also the magic, the creativity, the storytelling, the passion, the heart. The magic of storytelling is also half of what human beings are. Now, over the next few days, we're going to hear a lot about the logic. But without the magic, without that passion and power of storytelling, then we are going to struggle and continue to struggle as we have struggled to engage 8 billion people in the change that we require. Now, the Entertainment and Culture for Climate Action Committee, of which I'm part of the ECCA Committee for Film and TV, is part of helping to solve that and to put that logic and that magic together. And it's not always easy. The way in which policymakers and scientists speak is very different to the way in which creatives and storytellers speak. And sometimes there isn't the respect that is deserved across those two groups. And sometimes there's a lot of confusion and misunderstanding. But in a world where we have more people having access to smartphones than to toilets, in a world where people spend as much time, if not more, watching film and television, human beings spend more time watching film and television than we spend in education. This is the industry that has the power to tell stories about climate. But those stories can't be crap. They can't be bad. They can't be boring. They can't be terrible, moralistic storytelling that doesn't engage people. The story of climate change should be the most exciting adventure story. It should be a story with the most compelling, passionate, exciting characters you can imagine. The story of climate change should be the story of our age. It should be the most inspirational story. It should be the story that we cannot take our eyes away from, because it is the story of our lifetimes. In the next hour, we're going to hear from creatives, we're going to hear from policy leaders, we're going to hear from the UN, we're going to hear from a city in terms of talking about how we can use this power of creativity and storytelling. We're also going to hear a great deal about Article 12 of the Paris Agreement. And Karina, who's going to come up and speak in a moment, will tell you more about that. Hands up, who knows what Article 12 of the Paris Agreement is? I would expect so. A couple of names. Thank you. It might be an over-exaggeration, but I suspect that Article 12 of the Paris Agreement is the most forgotten agreement in the Paris Agreement. There are more controversial parts of the Paris Agreement. There are definitely more neglected parts of the Paris Agreement, but Article 12 of the Paris Agreement is what 196 countries signed up to, which is to engage and communicate with their citizens about climate change. So every single country that signed the Paris Agreement has agreed to engage and communicate with their citizens. Every single company that says that they are Paris aligned should be engaging and communicating about climate change, the problem, the solutions, the adaptation need. So it is this is also me vamping while some more people come in. It's my very, very great pleasure to host this session today. We've got some fantastic contributions. Hopefully we'll have some questions from the audience. And with that, I'd love to hand over to Karina Larson, who is representing UNFCCC, and who'll be talking about why the work of the ECCA committee in film and TV and the wider work of ECCA in music, in social media, and in art is so crucial and central. Please join me in welcoming Karina.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. We're really thrilled to have you here today to explore the powerful intersection of storytelling, culture, and climate action. To start, just a few words on why this nexus of culture and climate is so important. Culture is so much more than just an expression. It's the heart of communities, shapes our identities, values, and behaviors. Through our cultural heritage and creative expressions, we gain a sense of identity and learn to care for our communities and our environment. Culture also influences our lifestyle choices and consumption patterns, which are essential to addressing the climate crisis. And if we aim to reduce carbon footprints and protect natural resources, we need more than technological solutions. We need a shift in how society views its relationship with the earth. The creative industries, through film, television, music, the visual arts, video games, play a vital role in telling stories that inspire this kind of transformation. The UNFCCC's Entertainment and Culture for Climate Action initiative aims to provide a platform for the cultural sector to be a leading force in the journey toward a climate resilient future. ECCA is a unique alliance of artists, creative industry representatives, and cultural leaders, working to support storytellers, artists, and other creatives who bring climate change issues to life through powerful narratives, helping audiences to imagine a better future and to act on it. And even though the creative industries are not the largest emitting industries, in order to achieve our climate change goals, it is essential that all sectors take transformative climate action now. Therefore, ECCA works with the creative industries in order to align with the 1.5-degree pathway of the Paris Agreement. This connection between culture and climate action also directly supports the principles of Article 12 of the Paris Agreement, known as the Action for Climate Empowerment, or ACE, which Soli mentioned earlier. ACE emphasizes the importance of education, training, public awareness, and public participation in climate action. So this really gets to the heart of where culture and climate sit. ECCA aligns perfectly with these goals in that culture and creative industries reach broad audiences, can educate communities, and can inspire participation in the climate movement. So today we'll be introducing you to some of our new Film and TV Steering Committee members. This group of visionary leaders will help us guide the Alliance, ensuring that storytelling and sustainability remain powerful tools for climate action. Over the course of the next year, they'll guide our work to finalize an industry commitment to climate action, to facilitate knowledge sharing, and to support awareness raising through events and other activities. I'd also like to take a moment to acknowledge and thank the convening team, some of whom are with us today, for its foundational work in bringing ECCA to life. Without their vision and dedication, this initiative wouldn't be where it is today. Finally, I'd like to introduce another exciting aspect of ECCA's work, the Accelerator City initiative, in which the City of Liverpool is partnering with ECCA to serve as the inaugural city to pioneer smart regulations and innovative practices to decarbonize its vibrant live music, film, and television production sectors, which are core to the city's economic life and its identity. To launch this work at the end of November, Liverpool will host 3 nights of sustainable music and prepare 8 separate tracks of work, 4 on film and television, 4 on live music, for piloting decarbonization in these areas over the coming year. This effort is truly a collaborative effort, with leadership also provided by the musical band Massive Attack, as well as civil society, academia, and private sector partners. We will be working with this effort over the next year to capture the learning that we find along the way, and that can be broadly disseminated to other cities and cultural initiatives. Through ECCA and these types of partnerships, We really hope to work together to create impactful solutions that drive meaningful climate action through the power of culture and creativity. We look forward to an inspiring discussion today and look forward very much to collaborating with all of you going forward. Thank you.
Thank you so much to Karina and for the support from the UNFCCC Action for Climate Empowerment Group. We've talked a bit here about the importance of storytelling and why storytelling matters, but we can't do a session about storytelling without some storytelling. Now, one of my fellow members of the steering committee for ECCA Film and TV is an incredible storyteller and filmmaker, Rezwan Sharara Shumit, who is the director and producer of My Pixel Story in Bangladesh. And I can tell you, you're in for a great treat and a great deal of inspiration as I ask Shumit to come and join me here on stage.
Hello, everyone. Thank you. Thank you, ECCA, for organizing this event today. And let's begin with a 2-minute clip from one of my feature films, The Salt in Our Waters. Are we ready? Okay. Yeah, so I'm a filmmaker, producer from Bangladesh. I was born and brought up there, went to NYU for film school, and wrote my first feature script there, which is called The Salt in Our Waters. Did research in the coastal belts extensively to develop this film. And it had a pretty long and transformative journey for me. Are we ready? Okay, so what you are going to watch is a 2-minute excerpt where we see what reality the artisanal fisher folks of our country are facing. So there are about 1 million people in the southern coast of Bangladesh who are dependent on small-scale fishing and aquaculture. And about 90% of all our marine capture is done by them. So they're a pretty big crowd, pretty big community. And this community is rooted in tiny coastal villages and sometimes even hamlets. And they hold on to their values and their traditions very dearly. And in this film, what I show is that they are constantly having to adapt to rising sea waters, salinization, decreasing fishing stock, and also disruptive climate events. So let's watch a couple of minutes, and you will get an idea. Sound.
এটা থামছে এই বাড়ারা এই এই তোরা কি মাছ পাইছো দেখা দি আও আও pasa rayado.
30,000 টান তেল পুরাইয়া এই কটা মাছ লইছি।
হুজুর আগরটা গরম তোর পাতাল
বাসারে নৌকা কম না।
আর নামটা অনেক দক্ষিণে চলে গেছে পথে মরে হারে হালাইছি কি কও হারাই হালাইছো হ্যাঁ
আর নৌকা ফিরাইলে মোরে খবর দিও। আর না ফিরাইলে ওরা ব্যাগ কি বিছাইতে পারি।
আসসালামু আলাইকুম এবেরা সবাই দরুদ শরীফ পড়েন দরুদ শরীফ পড়েন দরুদ শরীফ পড়েন
اللهم صل على سيدنا ونبينا وشفيعنا وحبيبنا مولانا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وبارك وسلم.
So that was just one day in their lives. And when I went to the village for the first time, when I got to meet them for the first time, they asked me, okay, so are you one of those other content creators who come to our lands and film us and then forget about us? Are you one of them? And I smiled and I told them that I promise you today that you will be the first people in Bangladesh to watch the film. The film eventually went on to premiere at the BFI London Film Festival, went to Busan, Gothenburg, and other international film festivals. But after my screening at the COP26 in Glasgow, I realized the timing was right for an impact screening in the coasts. And by that time, the village where we had originally shot the film was gone. The land was completely under water. So during high tide, this would be underwater. And this is exactly where we shot the film. The village used to stand here. And so I organized the screening and I invited all the people who worked in front of the camera and behind the camera. And I also invited the local administration, the commissioner, the chairman. And during the screening, people were having a hard time, resisting from breaking down because they were getting to relive the memories of their homes. And the cinema also allowed them to raise their voice in front of the authority who were present. They demanded rehabilitation. And through some of our interventions, we opened a communication channel between the two parties, the villagers and the authorities. And eventually some housings were allotted. And that was one of the ways we created impact with this film. And were we able to solve all of their problems? No, their problem is much more complex than that. So that is a case study that I'm still exploring, I'm studying, and I'm currently making another feature film. It's a feature documentary, which will be a continuation of this fiction film, and it's called The Tide is Rising. And I'll talk more about it during the panel. Thank you.
Come and join me. And if the rest of the panel could come up and join me, please. We have a lot of seats, so please don't be a stranger and come a little bit closer. And I'll introduce, gentlemen, I'm not that scary. maybe Tiago, you come over here, thank you. Maybe Lydia, thank you. Maybe I am that scary. So we also have some wonderful insightful leaders who are joining us online. So as well as Shamit that we have here, we have Karina, who you've heard from. We have Sam from the Sustainable Entertainments Alliance. We have Tiago, who has just been doing incredible work at the G20 on culture and climate. And we have Lydia, who, as well as working with the Task Force of Producers Guild of America, is herself an incredible creator and filmmaker. And online, we have Mr. Liam Robinson, who is the leader of Liverpool City Council, which is the accelerator city that we just heard from Karina on. I'm very much hoping that Emily Wanja, the director of Africa African programs at the Doc Society in Kenya will also be joining us. Now, if we could bring up Liam, that would be brilliant. Liam, my first question is for you. Thank you I always think we should honour those who are calling in by going to them first so they don't get forgotten. So Liam, if you're with us from Liverpool City Council, if we could bring Liam up, there he is. I can see him coming. There we are. Liam, Karina told us a little bit around what being an accelerator city is, particularly on that connection of the logic of the film and TV industry and the creative industries and how we reduce their footprint, and also the magic of the power of storytelling. How can a city help with that? Why are we starting with a city?
Okay, well, thanks very much, and absolutely great to be able to join you this afternoon. Look, I think for Liverpool, it's a real privilege to be named as one of the UN's accelerator cities in sort of entertainment and the creative industries, because at the end of the day, actually kind of entertainment, culture, and particularly live music, Liverpool is synonymous with. And from our perspective, over the next few years, we'll be testing out a number of different innovations and technologies and sustainable practices to make sure that kind of our creative industries are at the forefront of the sort of race to net zero. I think one of the first things that we are going to be doing, as was mentioned earlier, is a little bit later on this month, we're going to be having a 3-night event at our arena on the Liverpool waterfront, looking at how we can decarbonise the live music industry. So we'll have artists like Massive Attack, like Nile Rodgers. We'll be making sure that as many people are travelling to the venue on public transport. We'll be making sure that the venue is powered by 100% renewable energy, often coming out of the wind farms that we've got not far away in the Irish Sea. And we'll also be making sure that we'll have things like a plant-based menu for people to eat food and drink from, but also no single-use plastics, and all waste will be completely compostable. And we'll use that event as a real good opportunity to audit what's worked and what more we need to improve upon, because we think there's a huge opportunity with things like the live music industry of how we can still make sure that people are enjoying themselves in these kind of fantastic cultural events, but we do it in the most sustainable way possible. And we're really sort of pleased to have that opportunity, not just to lead that for Liverpool, but to be at the real sort of global cutting edge of how we can do that for all of our cultural industries.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. And again, very much reflecting the wider ECCA objective around music and arts and others. I believe that Emily is online with us as well. She may only be in voice, but Emily has a strong and important voice to bring in the room. Emily is Director of Africa Programs at the Doc Society in Kenya, and she is also a member of the ECCA Film and TV Steering Committee, as myself and Shumit is. So Emily, are you online?
Can you hear me?
Yes, Emily, I can hear you.
Awesome. Yes,
Emily,
I'm right here.
Brilliant. Emily, it's very sad that we cannot see your wonderful face, but your powerful voice is important. Now, you are working to activate climate action with film and TV in Kenya and beyond. Can you tell us a little bit about your work?
Yes, for sure. So I think the biggest question for the continent, and as far as storytelling is concerned, has been what is the climate justice narrative for communities and for ourselves as a continent? And every storytelling project that we have supported, all the allies that we work with, most of whom are cultural organizers, storytellers, and ecosystem builders, all working towards answering that question. And this is manifested in the kind of stories we have supported over the years and the stories that we are seeing emerge continuously. These are stories that are featuring communities that are at the front line, communities that are grappling with adaptation right now, communities that have been resilient for a very long time. But that can only hold for so long without intervention, for example, from the governments or from the policymakers in putting in place structures that will help them adapt consistently and for them to be able to live better lives and look forward to a prosperous future. So the stories that we support do not end at the premiere or at the red carpet, as we like to say. So the question we are constantly asking ourselves is, how can this work then be useful, not just to storytellers and our peers, but also to stakeholders such as the civil society and also policymakers, researchers, and scientists in driving for some kind of social impact to a certain level. Are these stories perhaps useful as catalysts towards the solutions that our communities desperately need? And therefore, in just speaking about social impact, then you understand the work cannot be done by just storytellers alone. We need a whole ecosystem of participants, of stakeholders within the climate space, but also without the climate space because of the nature of climate effects. They tend to be really intersectional, right? They're affecting education, they are affecting food security, they're affecting our health. And therefore, creating allyship and partnerships with all these other stakeholders is so important in driving a narrative shift and using the tools of culture that we so passionately invest in driving this kind of change. So in a nutshell, this is the kind of work we have been doing mainly. We support independent storytellers. This will be, you will find multiple formats. There will be independent documentaries. There will be journalists who are sometimes working with storytellers. There will be amazing podcasts. And we also say we're not just concentrating on stories that will end up on TV, but we're also interested in podcasts, for example, that are innovative in how they're trying to reach the audiences, for example, say through WhatsApp and all of that. So we're about innovation, we're about thinking out of the box and getting stories to audiences by any means necessary. I hope that answers your question, Solly.
I absolutely did, Emily. Thank you so very much. And Emily, as you were talking there about the power of that cultural storytelling and that emotion, it really reminded me of the story that Shumit just shared around how, again, we sometimes strip emotion out of the climate conversation, and what a mistake that is, because we don't believe it, but policymakers are human beings too, and that emotional storytelling and that power of climate storytelling, and that's something that another member of the ECCA steering committee, Lydia Dean Pilcher, who represents the Producers Guild of America, but is also herself an educator and an award-winning filmmaker. And Lydia, could you tell us a little bit more about your work with the guilds and the studios on climate action, perhaps building on some of these themes?
Thank you. Yeah, I'm an international filmmaker, and I work as an independent outside of Hollywood, but I also work with Hollywood. And another colleague, Mary Jo Winkler, and I, around, it's when Al Gore was doing his slideshow training in Nashville, we flew down, we did it with him, and we decided that we were very interested in trying to talk about how we could decarbonize our film production sets. And so he helped us get a grant with the Alliance for Climate Protection, and we decided to do a pilot project of calculating a carbon footprint of a production. And the movie that we did it with, Mary Jo was working on, was a Sam Mendes film with Focus Features, which is part of NBC. And it was our inauguration into the whole idea of measuring our carbon emissions. And so the studios came to us shortly thereafter and let us know that they had sort of secretly designed a carbon calculator and was asking us if we would ambassador it. So we formed PGA Green with the Producers Guild. We're about 8,000 producers in the US now. And we worked with the studios to develop the Green Production Guide and began this journey of measuring our emissions on multiple levels of production. And pretty soon, you're collecting that data, you're aggregating it. The studios were able to issue a report. This was some years later, but it was right before Glasgow, actually. They issued a report that in film and television, and we already know that we have a massive, massive wasteful industry. Any production, whether it's an episode of television, whether it's an independent film or a big tentpole movie, it's somewhere around 50% and sometimes more of your carbon footprint is from fuel and power. And that was a big light bulb game changer for us. We hadn't really been thinking as much about the energy factor until that moment. And we wanted to release a call to action before Glasgow's, and we did. We printed it in the Hollywood Reporter, asking our industry to make a commitment, reduce carbon emissions by 50% by 2030. And that began a big focus for all of us on clean energy and this transition to electrification, which, as you know, has been a very slow but now fast building train moving forward. So we also formed an interguild and union sustainability alliance. And one of the amazing things that happens as climate accelerates, more people come to the table. And over the last 5 years, almost every union and guild in Hollywood and working in our film industry has formed a sustainability committee. And we work outdoors. We're really exposed to everything. We travel. We go to lots of different places. We see how other communities are being impacted by climate change. And so it's a big concern. It's something that we're very worried about. And we have formed 2 working groups. We have a clean energy working group, which is directors, producers, it's writers, it's the Teamsters, it's our crafts, everybody who works in the crafts on the set. And then we have another working group with the writers and the producers and the directors, which is a climate storytelling working group. And a word that I really like that I hear around COP this year is radical collaboration. This term really appeals to me, and it in the UN world, it seems to relate to bringing multi-stakeholders together to work on a common issue. And I feel like with our unions and guilds, that's what we're doing. We're coming together. It's over 500,000 people. It's a lot of people. Mm-hmm. And we're coming together to work on these issues together. In the climate storytelling realm, which is something that I think, is going to be a big part of the work that we do with ECCA, mm-hmm. The writers, we felt like after we sort of got past that 1.0 of like making sure you place it in the film and this and that, we're like, but what about the deeper, more complex stories about science and climate change? Where are the movies that can really help us explore mm-hmm. what we've been afraid to explore about climate change because it's abstract, because there's a kind of slow violence to it. It's not like something that you can see as easily as things that we talk about when we talk about other issues in our storytelling. So, I teach climate storytelling in the climate school at Columbia University, and my students are very interested in looking at the issues that don't get talked about in film and television, and why are they left behind? And these are issues like water security, food security, human migration. These are the top 3 of this particular class this fall. These are their top 3 climate priorities, and so we've been very focused on that. And I think I saw. Did Bridget come in? Did I say? Oh, Bridget. Bridget is my new friend from Botswana. We met in Dubai on the way to COP. We were talking in the airport, and then, crazy as it seems, we were seatmates. And so Bridget's a farmer, and she works in the Department of Agriculture in Botswana. And we talked a lot about storytelling on the way. Mm-hmm. And we talked about the need for translatable science, for accessible storytelling. And these are the kind of collaborations I'm very excited about for ECCA. I think we can bring ourselves into a big tent where the stories just abound. It's the same thing in academia with eco-criticism and the humanities, the study of world literature and people's relationship to nature. They are treasure chests for storytellers about the relationship that we have to the natural world. Yeah. So I'm very excited for this collaboration and what we can all do together. And look forward to talking to you about it.
I love that thought of abundance. And we talk a lot about resources in sustainability, resources. But of course, imagination is a forever renewable resource. Every generation that's born comes with this incredible imagination. We teach our children stories before we teach them any facts at all. And when Shumit, when you were talking about this incredible journey that you went on with My Pixel Story, it made me think about the fact that Bangladesh has an incredibly vibrant creative community and a growing film and TV industry. And that we often think of Hollywood when we think film and TV, but Bollywood, Nollywood, South Korea, China, the Brazilian economy, what's happening in Bangladesh. Perhaps you could just say a quick word about what you're doing within the film and TV industry in Bangladesh.
So even though the film industries are quite vibrant in South Asia, I would like to stress that the climate stories that we need are not enough. They are not being greenlit. There's not an ecosystem for them to thrive. So we have a pipeline problem and an ecosystem problem when it comes to climate stories. And the film you watched, there are other filmmakers who are trying to capture some of these stories, but we don't know where, how to distribute them. For example, The Salt in Our Waters does not have a permanent home yet. So I'm still trying to figure out the Rubik's Cube with this one.
Yeah.
So it's challenging. So pipeline and ecosystem, these are two areas I think ECCA, we should work on in the coming year.
Absolutely. And I think that being here at COP, reminding the COP delegates that Article 12 exists, and perhaps there is some work that they could do to help us get those incredible messages out there. I'm going to come to Sam. Sam, thank you very much for joining us. I know that we almost didn't get you, so it's great to have you here. So Sam is also a member of the ECCA Film and TV Steering Committee, and he is the leader of the Sustainable Entertainment Alliance in the USA. So Sam, could you tell us a little bit about some of the work that I know that you've been developing over this last year to activate climate?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Sustainable Entertainment Alliance is a consortium of studios and streamers and other industry stakeholders. Our members include Netflix and Disney and A24 and Apple and Amazon and about 11 or 12 studios and streamers at the moment. And we work together on a number of initiatives, both in terms of sustainable production, so how we are reducing the environmental impacts of the films and television shows that we make. To Lydia's point earlier, how we are both measuring and benchmarking these things, and also how we are increasing electrification on set and moving away from diesel generators and reducing waste and increasing circularity. So we have a really great collaborative environment between our member companies who share resources and best practices and engage with the incredible work that the guilds and the unions are doing as well to support that. But we're also really focused on climate on screen and how we can support that. And we sort of approach that work in a couple ways. One is, how can we support creatives who want to tell these stories and connect them with resources or with experts who can help advise on this, or ideally funding and development programs where they can actually do this work and create the stories and tell them in the way that they want to tell them. And then the other piece of it that we do with our members is really focusing on how we connect with audiences. So obviously, if you tell the perfect climate story and no one sees it and there is no audience for it, the impact that is possible for it to have are lower. So we are doing research into audience demand and title performance and how which of these stories connect with audiences and how to both help our members maximize these stories and connect them to as wide of an audience, but also how we can bring that expertise into this community and support that and help folks, adapt those stories and get it to as wide of an audience as possible.
Brilliant. Thank you so very much, Sam. Now, I'm very aware that we are all members of the ECCA committee, and we have a guest here who is not a member of the ECCA committee. But Tiago Jesus is a creative producer, a researcher, an organizer, and also has just been at the G20, where the G20 this year, just a week ago, held a focus on culture and climate in Brazil, which fills me with hope for COP30 and what the focus might be in terms of engaging culture and creatives and the cultural sector. By the way, in case you didn't know, the cultural sector worldwide, that's not just film and TV, but other aspects of the cultural industry, are worth $2 trillion. And millions of people work in this industry. So we are talking about a huge community of change makers around the world if we were able to engage and excite them. So tell us a little bit about the policy focus.
Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. So my name is Thiago. I am still buzzing of excitement from coming from the G20 meeting, and I'm still very tired because it happened last week. So it has been like I had the utmost honor and also a massive responsibility of helping the Ministry of Culture of Brazil, Margarete Menezes, to curate this first seminar on culture and climate change that happened on the margins of the cultural meeting, the tactical meeting for the G20. And it was amazing because the event opened with our 3 female ministers, our troika, really, of the Minister of Culture, Minister of Environment, and Minister of Indigenous Peoples together, talking about emphasizing really the crucial role of our culture and creative industries in achieving the Paris Agreement goals by touching people's hearts and minds. It's what we've been talking here as well. And together they called everyone that was in the room to be agents of change in behavior and thinking that the climate crisis requires from us. And it was amazing because this G20, we brought together over 50 artists, cultural experts, researchers, policymakers, filmmakers, indigenous leaders as well, to get together from over 17 countries to talk about, to really explore the various dimensions of culture as you're talking about. It's not just film, but it's art, it's culture, it's creative industries, and so on, to really explore. So we talked, of course, we talked about climate narratives and storytelling, but we also talk about themes like reimagining what a cultural institution should be in a time where the future will be very different from where it is right now. Or we talked about divesting investments from fossil fuels, which is a massive problem in the global south. Here in the global north, it's different in Brazil and in other continents, in other countries. Fossil fuels is the main source of funding for the creative industries. So we talked about how can we embed climate justice principles of fairness, of regeneration, of reparation in the work. So we talk about artivism as well, where this special space where art meets activism to talk to large communities, to foster a large societal change. So it really felt like a real milestone to have this event, and because it's after. I just want to remind as well that the UNFCCC was created in Brazil, in Rio, in 1992. So it really felt that, like, after 30 years, you know, it felt like this really special moment that we were actually having policymakers really looking at, you know, paying attention at the deep connection between culture and climate, recognizing the work that artists, grassroots organizations, cultural stewards, the responses that they are leading on the ground, solutions to climate change through culture that happens all over the world. And that these efforts, this work that has been happening everywhere, they must be elevated, they must be protected, they must be regulated, funded, and scaled up and replicated. And talking a little bit about my experience, I work in an organization called People's Policy Project, and we work with lots of indigenous communities from the southern borders of the Amazonian region in the Xingu. And this is the area where it's the largest soybean producer in the world, the second largest beef producer in the world. And those communities are there standing in resistance through their culture. You know, as long as they are there through their culture, the territory is standing, the forest is standing. You know, they are, and they are all filmmakers. That's what I really find. They use filmmaking to be able to tell the stories, to be protagonists of the stories, not someone else telling what's happening to them on their behalf. But they use, and they started use filmmaking skills to first to preserve and to document the cultural heritage that was at risk. And now they are already curating indigenous film festivals all over the world. They are doing VR. They are doing, you know, they are reshaping the narratives of indigeneity And I just wanted to talk about that because I think this is a work that is happening everywhere in the world. It's happening, you know, cultural leaders are finding climate solutions and fighting for this everywhere in the world. And we really need policy to be able to look at that, to shine, to regulate, to invest, to fund, and so on. So it really felt that this G20 meeting was a milestone. And I just wanted to shout out to my friend Vinicius from the Ministry of Culture, who is here, was one of the negotiators who fought very valiantly for the language to be there. Thank you, Vinny. And also Karina. And so it feels something, it was really special. And I know I'm biased because I'm Brazilian, but like I think Brazil is the place where we can actually achieve something really important. You know, talking about indigeneity, we have 305 different ethnic groups speaking 274 different languages in our country. So it's a country so vibrant, so extraordinary in both culture and biodiversity. So I really have hopes that we can have something really special that will unlock the power of culture in climate policy next year. And just to add as well, we have, I doubt that anyone can name another country where we had 2 ministers of culture. There are incredible musicians and singers. So
pretty sure our Minister of Culture is not. I've never asked her to sing. Thank you so very much for that. And the fact that Brazil pioneered at the G20 this statement on culture that came out, I think it gives us great hope for the role that culture and creativity can take in COP going forward. But I do also recognise that combination between the logic and the magic can be very difficult. Like if you sit down and give a speech about climate policy making to a bunch of creatives, you know, they're going to take that time to have a little nap. If you try to sometimes talk to policymakers about the power of creativity, they think that it's not important, it's aside. One of the things which we've got to do is try to build a lot of, as Lydia said, radical collaboration between people who perhaps are motivated and interested by different things. Because if there's one thing I'm very aware of, is that we have 8 billion storytellers on this planet. Every single one of you is a storyteller. And there are those who make that into their profession and their craft, and they are exceptional at it. But all of us have a story to tell about climate, which leads me, as if by magic, to the fact that if there's any questions within the audience, we have a few minutes for any questions or thoughts. Some hands went up straight at the front. So does somebody have a microphone? Oh, you can step to the microphone. Just it's all a bit formal. Sorry, please step to the microphone. And if you wish to, please do share who you are. Thank you.
Hello, good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Irina, and I'm a research officer, actually working on a project that is trying to establish this radical collaboration that you've been talking about, bringing science and 8 billion stories out there together. So what we are trying to do here at COP is just to understand what is it that the climate has done to us, an intimate history that every single person has. We're trying to get the carnal link that every single one of us has to climate. And through that, try maybe to craft a message that could stay online with people at all moments. So my question to you is, how do we make the messages stick? How do we make sure they're always online, that there is no this massive psychological distance that we all tend to create to protect ourselves?
Yeah, I think that's a brilliant question. Can I just check, because I want to make sure we have time for other questions. Is there anybody else who wants to grab the microphone? Do you want to? But actually, yes, if we could, if that was wonderful. Sorry, Catherine from BAFTA is here, so it would be great, Catherine. Please do take a stand by the, if someone else has a question, I'll have time for, I'm going to take a few at once and then we'll answer them in time. Catherine.
Hi, yeah, I'm Catherine. I work at BAFTA Albert, and I just wanted to bring up that in COP26, we worked with the industry in the UK to sign a climate content pledge, which was signed by 12 broadcasters in the UK to commit to more creating more and better climate content on screen, as well as sharing research with each other. And I was wondering if there's any examples that you know of in other areas that have done that, or if you think there's any opportunity to perhaps extend that further globally.
Brilliant. Thank you so very much. And also massive kudos. It sounds a bit terrible for someone with a British accent saying that, but massive kudos to the work of the Climate Content Pledge in the UK. So we've had one question about how do you make these stories stick? Because as was so rightly said, if nobody wants to watch them or engage with them, we're not going to get cut through. And we've had a question about, is it possible for us to extend? I'm just going to take a couple more, and then I will leave it to panel's choice of which one they answer. Yes.
Hello, my name is Ludovic Gattini. I come from Sweden, represent the Swedish Green Party's Foundation, and I'm a delegate for all the Global Greens community. So my question is very simple. It's pretty much to you directly as professionals. Like, when we've seen either dealing with content, or propose a creative content, so creators, what would you say is the balance between the ideas you've seen coming that would address, for example, the effect or the solutions to climate change, right? And the ones that are addressing the causes, such as, production, consumption of fossil fuels, upscale, consumption, circulation of goods beyond the limits of planet. So what would be your experience? Tell us a little bit about this.
Who gets motivated by the problem versus who gets motivated by the solution? We'll take the questions of those who are already standing, but we won't be able to take any more. Please, sir.
Hi, my name is Jason Toei. I'm a PhD student at Stanford University. I'm from the US. My question is, so there's a lot of folks that make like obviously climate content and whatnot, but there's less so of people who are actually doing I don't know, a lot of academic research, a lot of the science behind it. And my question is, how can we further create a partnership with the folks that are in media in these organizations and the folks that might be in academia or in some of these science-based organizations and agencies?
It's a great question. I think there's some exciting work underway.
Thanks. First of all, thanks to the panel. My name is Simon Donner. I'm a scientist from Canada, from University of British Columbia. And to combine sort of all of these questions, huge respect for what everyone here is talking about and doing. I wonder a lot if the challenge is not creating new climate content, but embedding climate content in the types of stories people already want to hear. And that's the challenge, and I think I see people responding to this. So I'm just curious how we think about doing that. Like for me, we can create like in Canada, I could create climate content, but I could also try to get them to talk about climate change during Hockey Night in Canada on TV. And that's the balance I'm trying to figure out.
Absolutely. And I think that's something which BAFTA can talk about, because the Climate Content Pledge is about entertainment content, not documentary. Yes.
So I'm Michael Mortimer. I'm from Harvard University in the United States, and I'll piggyback onto that a little bit. I'm a policy specialist, and I'm really thankful for this refreshing break from policy. How much thought has been given to the $200 billion a year video game industry and the role of climate change in video games? And for example, the game Civilization VI has a greenhouse gas emissions and sea level rise mechanic built into the game.
Yeah.
And you're able to reach a really growing and young audience with that particular tool. So I'm curious what thought has been given to that.
Absolutely. I think gaming, social media, art, and the various other disciplines is definitely something maybe Karina could take. So that was a lot. And I think there was some themes coming through it. So themes of how do we connect the excellent work that's being done in the academic community about neuroscience of storytelling, narratology. We've got a great deal on behavior change and public engagement. And there's been so much work that's been done in the academic community around the efficacy of different messages. How do we get anybody to be interested in any of that? The answer to that one is probably easy, which is make it entertaining. Is it around telling stories of the problem or telling stories of solution? Can we embed this in romance, in reality TV, in soap operas, in cooking shows, which is probably a much more exciting way to tell that story? And probably some other questions which I forgot. So we have a hard stop. So I'm going to ask everyone to take 1 minute to answer those questions. So I'm going to come to each member of the panel who are here. I won't be able to come to the online. 1 minute answer.
Yeah, I'll just say, as a cultural strategist, I've taught cultural strategy in film departments. The audience is really important. Who are we communicating to? It's the message, but it's the audience too. And your first question, I think, really to me, there's something known as perceived risk, right? And every community, every audience may perceive their own risk to climate change differently. It may have to do with their norms, their values, their beliefs. When Yale did an audience survey for America, it wasn't one size fit all, even though they tried initially on other countries. But countries like Indonesia, you have to do there have to be custom segmentations. I think you mentioned that as well, Shamit, because every culture is different. And that's something as ECCA we have to take into consideration. As storytellers, we have to take into consideration. So that, again, is sort of, there's a term that scientists use called co-production, which is coming in to communities with community leaders, working with people like Bridget, who are working with farmers and finding the right way to communicate through stories, the science of what's happening. And I think science can be very empowering, but people find it overwhelming. So if we as storytellers can break that barrier, if we can, it's so easy to do. If you just put a climate scientist in a story or you put a climate journalist, there's already a mechanism to have something going on. And it's very interesting how, when we do it in my course, how it affects character, which is the emotional value of what you're experiencing. We see ourselves through the characters of our stories.
Brilliant answer. Diego.
Ooh, okay, so what I think is that sometimes sometimes we might be underestimating our audiences. I think, I produce one Indigenous film festival in the UK that is completely curated by Indigenous people, and all the films are directed by Indigenous people. So it's the first one of these festivals, a festival of this kind that I know of. And when we set up, we were talking to funders, and everyone was like, Thiago, who will want to come to a cinema of 300 seats to watch the film? And I was beaten by that. I'm like, yes, it might be true. And you know what? We sold out the cinema. And we extended our run from 3 to 6 days. It became a biennial, and we have every showcase, and it's at the ICA, the Institute of Contemporary Art in London, and it's the biggest festival that they have of audience members. So I really think that we underestimate what people want to see. I think there's a huge work to be done in bringing new storytellers, forming new storytellers to tell the stories from their perspectives, from their territories, from wherever they are, and not just be thinking about what do we as an industry think. We have to take that risk. I think this is really important, because I think we need more stories. We need different stories, different perspectives, different makers as well. So I think my answer is take a risk, think of inclusion, and everything that we are doing nowadays as well, it's not about a future. We are living climate change. So everything that you are doing and that you're producing is climate-related content as well. So I think that's my contribution to this answer.
Brilliant contribution to building on what Lydia said about understanding the audiences are different, to then also respect the fact that there is interest and passion for this out there. Sam.
Yeah, I think the thing that was coming to mind for me the most during those questions is just something that we talk about a lot, which is that we're a creative-led industry, right? Like, these are creative people who are coming up with stories and telling stories. So going to them and saying, tell a story about climate change can be constricting or prescriptive. But if you work with creatives to say, one of the, I guess, unfortunate things about climate change is it is affecting all of us all the time. So saying, how is climate change affecting your character? How is this going to impact their life? Bringing it in that way to a story that you are already telling, and a story that can be successful, and then weaving those narratives in from a climate perspective. I think an example that I'm thinking of off the top of my head is this latest season of True Detective Night Country, which is a detective show. It's a noir, it's a crime thriller, but it is taking place in Alaska in a mining community where they are dealing with all sorts of climate issues. And so it is a very authentic to the characters that are on screen, and it is still, a thriller and a whodunit, and they're trying to figure that out, but it is inherently interwoven with climate because it is taking place in our current day. And then to the point about research, which I love and want more of, I think building those pathways, and I think that's an opportunity for us as ECCA is to build the pathways between the research and the policy and educating the creatives so that as they're thinking, how is climate impacting my character or how is this going to impact my storyline, we have those connections between the research and the policy and then the creative storytelling.
Brilliant. Thank you. We've got about 90 seconds between the two of you.
So I won't repeat what Sam said, but very much agree on the point on research and on bringing these climate narratives into everyday stories, series, TV programs. And then I wanted just to comment on the question about video games. So within ECCA, we really want to be an umbrella for all different types of creative industries. And we have a group that works on visual arts. We're delving into music with Accelerator City. And so really welcome all creative industries and people to that. But we also have a sister UN organization, UN Environment Program, which is doing an excellent job working with video game companies and designers. And there are some fantastic games being developed. One of which I know being developed in Denmark actually gets you to play your grandchild or someone in your family line in the future, and really makes you think about the actions that you're taking now and how that affects that person going forward. So
thank you.
As a storyteller, when I am developing my stories, instead of spelling doom and gloom or prescribing solutions, what I tend to do is focus on the memories and the imagination of the people that I tell my stories about. So their memories and imagination need to be brought to the forefront, and they have to be seen through a lens of dignity. That is also very important to me.
Brilliant. Thank you. So if we could bring up the final slide. There was a lot of themes that came out. There was a theme of the fact that we already have a great deal of storytelling out there, a theme of the desperate need for more funding, particularly development funding, and the role of policymakers. The theme around creative independence, that creative people stop being creative when you make them become your mouthpiece. Like if you took Greta Gerwig, who directed the Barbie movie, and you kidnapped her and brought her to COP and made her make a movie about climate change, it would be unwatchable. But because instead you require inspiration and excitement. In fact, in many ways, we're inoculated against forcing creatives to talk about climate because the content that would came out, nobody would ever watch. And that's the same with audiences, that actually you can sit an audience in a room and show them climate content and they will just fall asleep or go on their phones if it's not interesting. So the passion, the power, the creativity, and if I may say also the professionalism of the creative industries. Many people who work in these industries have dedicated their lifetimes to honing and understanding what creativity is, and that is an incredible resource, but it's also a boundary. They will tell us what is possible in terms of storytelling and what isn't. What I would ask is, if you're in a creative industry, please do join ECCA. But also, please engage the creative industries in the country that you'll be returning to in the next few days. We are in a massive recruitment drive in ECCA to get many more folks from creative industries into the Film and TV Committee of ECCA, but also into the other parts of ECCA on gaming and social media and music and visual arts and others. I'll just close by saying, about 11 years ago, I had a huge success for showing environment on screen, which is I convinced EastEnders, which is a well-known soap opera in the UK, to put a recycling bin in shot on Earth Day. This was the height of environmental communication on screen, and it was considered, thank you very much, please don't applaud, it's so embarrassing. And that was considered hugely controversial, and the media in the UK wanted to do a big expose on how that was going. And yet today, there are so many creatives for whom this is the story of their lifetime, and that there are those creatives who are most motivated to tell the story of the impacts and the challenges and the real lived experience challenges of people who are facing climate change. And there are other creatives who are most inspired to tell the story of the solutions and the answers and the people who are making a difference, because that's one of the things about creativity, is that it is magical and you cannot tell it where to go. It will go where it wants to. All you can do is inform and inspire and excite. So I hope this is an exciting session for everybody. Please do go out there and advocate for the work of ECCA and for Article 12. Ask politicians what Article 12 is. If they can't answer it, then give them a little poke to go and find out. And please do follow up on the entertainment and culture for climate action. You have many of the members of the new steering committee here and many of the members of the convening committee as well. So thank you so very much for joining us. I also believe the next session is starting right now, and we might need to continue the conversation outside.